To order. Mayor and Council would like to acknowledge that we're within the traditional territory of the Secwepemc Nation. I would also like to recognize that this is Administrative Professionals Day and offer a thank you to our staff. Before I ask for an adoption of the agenda, CAO Daly, are there any additions or deletions from the agenda?
No, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Could I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Councillor Burge, second.
I'll second it.
Councillor Ribbit, all in favor? Carried. Adoption of the minutes of the regular meeting of council dated April 14th, 2021. Could I have a motion to adopt those, please?
So moved.
Councillor Park, second.
I'll second it.
Councillor McElravy. Any discussion, errors, omissions? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Delegations, we have ABC Communications. Okay, is Falco ready? Do we have a technical problem?
Wreck the joint while I'm waiting. Oh, I see his mic's off. Is he buried?
Do we have a way of contacting Mr. Cadenback?
Well, I'm messaging him on the laptop here.
little.
Yes,
Yeah.
can.
No, we need a speaker.
We can unmute us, can't you, on there?
Yeah, you
Yeah.
could.
With the microphone so you can hear us.
Just
The microphone. Can't see you either. See us.
Just click on the microphone.
Can someone confirm that you can hear me?
We're getting there.
Yes, we can hear you.
Well, just once, Susan.
All right.
Oh,
I'll share my screen here quickly. Started. Okay. So, yeah, I guess just a quick introduction here. You know, we launched the Millimeter Waiver. We're launching that currently. I guess we're still doing a bit of hooking a few people up in the community, but you know the intent is to sort of launch next week, and that'll entail sort of going through a whole bunch of emailing, I guess, to the existing customer base, letting everyone know that way, and we'll most likely send them to their community as well as part of our launch. I'm not going to go into this too much detail. I think everybody here probably knows us well enough by now, and our history and where we come from. So, of course, I'll just take a bit of an opportunity to dive into some of our history of this project. You know, we started off, this project was supposed to be a fiber-to-the-home project. We ran into some challenges with regard to the pole infrastructure in the community, and we had to change technologies, which we then did with a guidance from the province and also the approval by this council. So what we did is we looked at these two different technologies. We did the first stage, which was really quick to market LTE solution, which provided 50 meg services to the community almost within a few months of that. We did a subsequent upgrade to I think last summer. So that was sort of in hand, and then we were working at that same time on stage 2 of this build, which was a new technology that is kind of part of a larger solution that is being delivered in many markets across North America, well, the world, I guess, at this point. And it's using a higher frequency wireless solutions, and so millimeter wave. And so it basically allows us to provide a high bandwidth capability to a residential home or a small business or a business. And it's up to 10 gigabit is what our sites are capable of. However, our service packages that we decided to offer were 250 megabit. And the reason we did that is because we wanted to A, not under deliver. So, and B, we were just not really sure how this was all going to go. So, part of a sort of a research and development project, I guess, it being one of the first that we've done, and certainly fairly new in the market. So, that was sort of our phased approach to getting things to market. And of course, that took a little while to do. And so, this was our solutions providers. Huawei obviously was one of our partners for 4G distribution and millimeter wave. We chose Adtran, an American company that we were partnered with to do fiber deployments, and we utilized the same management platforms to enable us to do the millimeter wave deployment, which is kind of a foundational technology to 5G, although it's not true 5G. In that space, but it gives us the ability to provide higher speed capabilities to the residents. So that was our solution. We delivered that solution, and subsequently we had some challenges with some of the software, and I'd have to honestly admit that Adtran was maybe selling themselves a little bit more forward than they were really market ready. So we did work through that challenge with them, and there was a few key learnings that were had, and unfortunately it came at the expense of the project timelines, which obviously wasn't in our best interest, or certainly your best interest as a community. So we apologize for that delay, and we hope that we can certainly provide those services to you now, and get this project completed. So we stuck to the same principles that we applied from a business metric early on in this project, and this sort of constitutes our urban wireless packages, which is what we came to at the beginning of the project over 18 months ago. So we have our run through the residential wireless packages, urban 10 through 250, and basically providing a high throughput capability, and then we have their urban wireless business packages as well. So a full suite, which are available today. The millimeter wave service zone has changed a little bit from the original fiber footprint. So two areas that are key to understand here are the subdivision to the north east of the community, and then some of the area to the sort of southwest of the community. And so those two areas specifically, we weren't able to extend to truly because we didn't have the infrastructure to support line of sight. And so with millimeter wave, it's really important to understand that the line of sight is absolutely critical, and the distance is absolutely critical. So when we built our system, we based it off of a 400 meter sort of radius, and so that was off of all the mesh nodes. And so we were able to build it out. We actually ended up having to put an additional node into the network to actually get the full coverage that we have today. And that was, again, one of our key learnings that came along with some of the engineering that Adtran had done for us at that time. So what we have is this footprint with 250 meg capability, and then we have, obviously the much larger footprint, which is our LTE footprint, which covers pretty much every home in the community with 50 megabit capability. So we're essentially at the point where we've installed a few customers to get, our sort of first group wave in, and looking at quality of service and seeing how that has been performing. So far, my understanding is that the results have been great. And then basically our next steps are going to be to fully launch next week and send out emails, and then essentially just open it up for orders. So we're hoping that there'll be some uptake in the community. I know that, through some of our survey activity, we didn't have a huge, ask for the higher bandwidth packages, which, we're hoping we'll see some changes to that. And possibly it's just a matter of folks feeling comfortable with what there is to offer. So, and so I'd be happy to take some questions, and if you have any questions that you'd like to have answered, I'm happy to answer anything that you might have right now.
Anyone have questions? We have a question from Councillor Park.
Hi, Falco. Back that one slide where you had the overview of the village, and there was the footprint that you're talking about. So there was the two parts of the community that weren't in that footprint. So just to confirm, it was the one that was in that footprint is able to have the 250 megabits per second, and The ones outside are still able to have the LTE, like the up to 50, is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah. So our coverage footprint that you might find, say, on our website in the coverage profile for Clinton will show the full coverage of the community with 50 megabit capability. So every home that has access to that coverage, which is the majority of the valley, of course, when we many years ago pulled our systems off of Lime Mountain, we lost a bit of coverage, and that was down, I think, Kelly Lake Road and further up the highway towards Cache Creek.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else? Did we have any questions come in through the website?
No, the only question was, I think it was already answered with respect to the extent of the.
I guess that's all the questions we have.
Okay, well that's an easy one. I was awaiting all kinds of questions.
If we think of any, we'll email them to you.
Okay, well I appreciate that very much. I would add that we'll probably see some press releases coming out at some point. I know the province was asking me the other day, so probably see some of those come out about this project. One other thing I'm going to be working on, or am working on, is a report, a twofold report. One is a case study that will be specific to the technology provider Atran, and the second part of that would be is a case study or a report for TELUS Research and Development that is looking at some of this technology. And so if there's an opportunity for me to gain a bit of information and insight in regards to some of the demographics of the community, may I ask? I'll give you a call on that, Murray. Is that possible?
Yep, for sure. We look at that.
Yep.
Excellent. Okay, well, there you go. I had a question myself, so there we go. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your presentation.
Okay, have a good night.
You too. Okay.
Already know that.
So that takes us to the question period. CIO Daily, were there any other questions that came in on the website?
No, Madam Mayor?
None? All right. Moving on, correspondence for action. Clinton Museum letter requesting letters of support for grant application. So as you can see from their letter, they have a couple of grants that they want to do, and they're looking for letters of support from the village to put in with those applications. One to the Heritage Legacy Fund and one to BC Community Gaming Grant. So we'll deal with that before we deal with their other request for the plantings in the yard. So any discussion on that before we make a motion on it? Okay, would someone care to make a motion to provide those two letters of support?
I'll make the motion to supply a letter of support to the Clinton Museum for the grant applications.
Councillor McElravy, seconder.
I'll second it.
Councillor Burridge. Any discussion? Councillor Park.
Time is of the essence. If you look at April 30th, it's their deadline, so I guess
So
tomorrow's
like
the
tomorrow?
29th, so if we can have that as soon as possible.
Okay, sounds good. Any more discussion on that? All in favor? Carried. Their other request is for approval to proceed with the plans for plantings in the yard. Councillor Park, you have been receiving the minutes of their meetings. Do you know where they're planning to plant or what they're planning to plant?
I don't know that information, but the key part is that they're planning to consult with the village and approval of the village of where they plan. So I guess that's, in my mind, the main thing, I guess.
Okay, so do we need a motion on that, or just direction to staff to work with the Museum Society?
I have a question though to
Yes.
our CEO, is that when someone, of course, it's village property, they're, is that something that, when they're, I guess, we do this a few times where we've had different people planning on village property and on the parks, et cetera, and so this is, as long as they have that approval and guidance from, say, your public works staff, what kind of trees, because you obviously got to think about long-term as well, right? What kind of trees or plants or bushes and stuff like that for maintenance as well. So I guess the question is also who does the maintenance on the actual shrubbery down the road as well, I guess. So that'll actually, one thing the council think of, that will be time for our public works as well?
Yeah,
Or is
I
it
think
something that
that's-
they would be responsible for?
No, I think in the past, the way that, at least my understanding with the limited time I've been here, is that other groups have planted the trees and the expectation is that our works department maintains them, right? So
Right.
whether that's just watering or working around grass mowing and stuff like that. So it's definitely a consideration that, if they want to do the planting and do the maintenance for the year that it exists or whatever, then that's certainly something that's agreeable. But if it's a long-term, something else to put on our work staff, then that's definitely something we have to look at, right?
Right. So if I may again, so that would be the, I guess that'd be under discretion of, if we said up to the discretion of the staff of the public works, that they could decide what kind of, what kind of trees and shrubs will be planted, whether it'd be okay or not, and.
Yeah, I think if they're looking for a letter of support or anything like that from us, then we could work that into the letter, that it'll be a collaboration between Public Works and the society.
Would you like that in the form of a motion?
Just to provide the letter would be fine, and we can work on how it's drafted and what's in the body of it.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So that's just direction to staff then?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Sounds good. Right, Clinton and District Community Forest requesting council's approval for the appointment of 2 new individuals to the Board of Directors. So they've completed their interview process with all the applicants. I'm not sure how many applicants they had, but they're recommending that the village appoint Mrs. Jessica Lawrence and Mrs. Laura Paquette to the Board of Directors. Would someone care to make a motion to that effect?
I'll make the motion that council approve the appointment of Mrs. Jessica Lawrence and Mrs. Laura Paquette to the board of the Clinton Community Forest.
Seconder?
I second it.
Councillor Burridge. Discussion. Councillor Park.
Just on the interview process, obviously trusting them going through the interview process, they're being adequate for, and of course, for their ideas, et cetera, their knowledge. And so I guess we just trust in the fact that they did their due diligence, of course, right? And so, but I'm just curious of how, if we may ask, what kind of, I guess, qualifications you're looking for. Is that something we're able to ask, or is it just?
Well, first of all, the interview process was very similar to the one that we used for the CAO. And it was scored. And we're of course looking, both of these individuals are very concerned about, the forests and the ecosystems, et cetera, et cetera. But we're also looking for somebody that's willing to learn, because it is quite a learning process. The reason we are recommending 2 people is, if you'll notice, the board can take up to 9. Right now we have 7. Well, there's several members right now that either have not been able to attend due to work or health issues, and some of the board members are thinking that within the next year or so they may retire. So we felt that we had two really good candidates here, and we feel with a little bit of education, and I know just from myself, that we're probably going to have them on the board for a while. I don't know if that answers your question, David.
No, actually, it adds background that was not in here, right? So it helps a lot. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, any more discussion? All in favor? Carried. Correspondence for information. We have several pages from CN making a proposal to combine with Kansas City Southern. And in recent correspondence, I've learned that CP is also making a pitch to combine with Kansas City Southern. It would make shipping from Canada to Mexico and back much easier. Reading file. We have 8 items on the reading file, several of them from Interior Health regarding outbreaks, clinics, etc. If anyone wants to have a look at those, they can ask at the front counter. Could we receive those for information, please? Administrative reports. CAO, none. Chief Financial Officer, use of COVID Safe Restart funds. CAO Daily, would you like to take us through the background on this?
So as council knows, there's a sort of pot of money granted to all municipalities, local governments in the province for safe restart from the COVID pandemic. The amount that we have, we've used it for a few things like the server upgrade and a couple other things, and we still have an amount left over. And an idea to use it was to distribute it to some sort of various groups within the community that if they suffered financial shortfalls during the pandemic from not being able to host fundraisers or events or things like that, that we could help them through with a bit of a financial boost from the pot of money that we were given. So it's just to come to council to have some discussion about if this is something that council would like to see happen, and then to sort of build some framework or policy around how we would distribute that. So would it be nonprofits only, registered under the Societies Act? Would it be, any identifiable group? And then, how much money do we want to contribute? Is there a maximum amount per, or is it going to be one pot and we'll take in one set of applications and council can look at all the applicants and make the decision as to what goes where, whether it's an even disbursement or an amount based on who the group is. That's something that council just has to have some discussion around within this as to, do we want to do it, and then how does it look like?
Your thoughts?
Councilor Mark? I think it's a great idea myself. And as CEO pitched out there, one thing I did notice, there was a little, you touched on it here, but of course they're asking a recommendation, at least for saying maybe groups that are registered societies and are nonprofits, and there are some in town that aren't that, so we'd exclude that. So we might want to consider including them all, because we'd have to say anyways at the end, I think, to the process of the council approving the amounts, but that's food for thought. That's what I was thinking. Because it's hard to say without a list sitting in front of me right now of all the ones you can think in my mind, which ones are actually registered or not.
Exactly.
So just I think it's really huge. I think of it like going back to the 150/50 when we had a pot of money too, and we had the same kind of process really.
Grant and aid.
X amount of dollars, and you had to go through the Spirit of Clinton to the thing, and then and if you qualified, then the money was given out. So I look at it kind of like the same kind of parallels with that, but that's my two takes on it.
Okay, Councillor Burge?
I agree with Councillor Park that, and if we kind of did it that same format as the 150/50, because it was a good process.
Mhm.
And I can think of probably one group for sure that isn't a nonprofit that probably could really use this um, to carry on their long legacy. Yeah.
I'm for this too, same format as the one for
Yep, I am too. I think it's a great idea.
So an application process and then,
Yes, yep, for sure.
okay.
Definitely.
My thought would be, it's recommended that a limit of 30,000. I would like to see a limit of up to 50 because we don't know how many organizations are going to come forward or how much they're going to be asking for. So if we put it up to 50, I know there's that and more in the pot. But just my thought. Yes, Councillor Park.
Well, I just on your amount that you just recommended, so I guess we should be asking staff. You're saying there is, but they're saying there's a limit of 30,000. So you're saying.
Well, they're
there should be a
saying
limit.
it's recommended that a limit of 30,000 be dispersed. But
Let's ask if the CFO has any comment on that.
We need a starting point somewhere to put a limit on it, so if we, that we realistically get to that, is the goal amount, that like, we get it at some point, we're gonna head it off.
Yeah.
I'm not saying we have to give out 50, I'm just saying if we allow up to 50. I mean, if we have a limit of 30,000 and we have 35 in requests, then who do you decide not to give it to? I'm just saying if we have up to 50, then it has a little leeway. So does anyone care to make a motion on that?
I'll make the motion that, how do we, that, what do we? That council approve the use of funds from the COVID Safe Restart Grant to make contributions to our local non-profit organization upon their successful application, up to $50,000.
Okay.
Do we need anything else added in?
I think that's sufficient. It doesn't say they have to be a registered society, so do we have a seconder for that?
I'll second it.
Councilor McAready, okay. Any more discussion on that?
I just want to
Councillor
say
Burge.
that with all our small community groups that rely, you know, like this town relies on them, so just again, re-saying that I think this is good.
Yeah. All right. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. CDC, update on Parks and Recreation Master Plan. I'm sure you've seen the notice on Facebook about our survey and the upcoming workshops. CAO Daly, did you want to add anything to the report that's here?
No, Madam Mayor, I think our community development coordinators did a pretty good job of outlining it, but we'll have the 2 Zoom workshops to give people a chance to have some input, and we've been receiving some of the surveys back already, so it's been a successful campaign so far.
Good. There's no recommendation on there, so receive for information. Public Works, none. Fire Department, none. Animal Control, none. Committees, none. Bylaws and policy. Intercommunity bylaw number 572, 2000 or 2021. So we have a report here. This is something that the villages of Clinton, Ashcroft, and Cache Creek have been working on for some time. But we have to come up with a bylaw because we don't have an intercommunity bylaw at the moment, or bylaw for bylaw enforcement at this moment. So the bylaw is in front of us there. Could we have a motion to take it to first reading?
I'll make the motion, Mayor Swan, that we take it to the inter-community bylaw enforcement bylaw number 572-2021 2021 to the first reading.
We have a seconder,
I'll second.
Councillor Burridge. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. Could we have a motion to take the bylaw to second reading? Councillor Park,
I'll make a motion that council give the second reading to the intercommunity bylaw enforcement bylaw number 572-2021.
seconder.
I'll second that.
Councillor McAravy. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. Okay.
Madam Mayor, we can take this one to third reading. I'm
We
sorry.
can take it to
Yeah,
third reading?
yeah.
All right.
Sorry, I was confused on the two bylaws we're going through tonight. Got mixed up when I was talking to you earlier.
He admits he's confused. Could I have a motion to take the bylaw to third reading?
I'll make the motion to take the intercommunity bylaw enforcement bylaw number 572, 2021 to third reading.
Seconder?
I'll second it.
Councillor Burridge. All in favor? Carried. Now we can move on, and the next item is zoning amendment craft distillery, and I will recuse myself because the property mentioned in there currently belongs to my husband and I. Councillor Park, would you take over this part of the meeting, please?
Absolutely. That's the recuse room, I guess.
Yeah, the recuser.
Okay, so there's I was giving some thought to this and how we can go through this, because we are allowed to have discussion before we actually have any of our resolutions on the motion, on the readings, and I think I'm going to ask for discussion first. Everybody's read the background. We know that interested parties are opening up a craft distillery down the end of town here, and of course, it's not in our current zoning bylaw, that particular craft or that particular type of business. So we have to do amendment to actually include it in there for this person to move forward. And of course, we have a zoning bylaw update coming along, and you heard staff say it's not traditional you change or do amendments when you have a zoning, but of course, we want to keep the ball rolling for this business to keep up. The other part of this as well is that they want staff saying you can skip your public input into this after the second reading, because it comes close to what the zoning is already. So we have that option, I guess, under the charter to actually skip that. So the reason I'm asking is I have something to say about that. So I figured if we had discussion rather than go through readings, then we'll start and see what you guys' thoughts on that, and then I'll take it back if you guys are okay with that.
Yep, sounds
So,
good.
so my thoughts on this was because of the fact that it is the mayor's property, that I'm thinking public perception on the fact that if we're saying skip public input into it, that people might have some thoughts about that. That was, when I first read that, that was what came up in my mind. So I'm not sure if anybody had any other thoughts on that. My other question, of course, would have been, as a staff, is that this person interested, is it, I guess we have to have a timeline of what that means, the timeline of getting this going. Is it to have staff input, is it a 2-week process, or is it if we wanted to have a public input?
If we have a public hearing, we have to have, if we waive the public hearing or we have it, we have to provide notification
Right.
the same. So you have to have
Right.
posting in 2 consecutive issues of the new, basically Ashcroft Journal.
Right.
So we would have those, we would, if we wanted to have a public hearing, we'd set a date sometime after that notification, and then we'd have to have the public hearing and then come back to third reading
Right.
at that time.
The cost is the same though, either way, right?
We just have to host a public hearing.
Yeah, exactly, but so
In
it's just
some
just for timeline.
digital fashion,
So
apparently.
timeline again, though, how long is it after the second reading? Is it to have your public input and then come back for third reading, I guess?
No, between 3 and 10 days. So
Okay.
it has to be between, it's like no, it can't be less than 3 days before, greater than 10 days before. So.
And the other question would be, as far as the interested parties,
Yeah.
I'm assuming 3 to 10 days is not going to be a deal breaker as far as this goes, but not knowing, I guess, but
Yeah.
so So that's what, that would be my concern about this. I see you guys, but anyways, that was
So
my concern.
the reason to waive the public hearing, it's legislated within, like, the charter and local government act, it's legislated that we're allowed to waive the public hearing if the zoning amendment is consistent with the OCP.
Right.
And it's consistent with the OCP, like I said, there's similar uses already permitted within those zones. It's not like saying we want to open a sandblasting shop or a, tire manufacturing business or something, right? It's something that's, fits within what's already permitted under the OCP, right? So.
Right. Gotcha. Does anybody have any thoughts on that before we?
The only thing I can say is I think any kind of new business to town is welcomed. And a distillery is something that we don't have, so we're not sort of stepping on anybody else's toes. The fact that the mayor happens to own the building, I mean, I don't think that's neither here nor there, because eventually the building will be sold to somebody that's going to open up something. So I just think this is it's a good idea, and I personally don't see anybody that I know would have a problem with it, as far as, not having a public hearing on it. It's just my opinion.
So
Sandy.
I kind of have the same ways with you about the public input, just because of some of the things that's been people say, we don't know anything. Right? So I think if this is well known, it's still in the paper, that I don't think we necessarily need a public hearing or input. But
Just to that too, so part of the notice is that, we still have to allow them to come down and inspect the bylaw. They can still make comment during that window that we're, advertising for not having the public hearing. And really in today's realm we're working on, if we have a public hearing, it's going to be a Zoom hearing. We can't even have an actual, traditional public hearing, right? So they've still got that time frame between this evening and when we come back for third and adoption, where we've advertised it in 2 consecutive issues of the paper, posted it at the post office, put it on our website and Facebook page and everything else, and invited public comment during that time. And when we come back for third reading and adoption, we can then present those, comments, concerns, letters of support, whatever, to council at that time to make their decision on adoption then, right? So.
That
seems fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see your point, Sue. My concerns, of course, is the fact that so it doesn't matter what the business. I think it's a great idea as well. There's no point. I think it'd be great to have something like that in Clinton, and we don't. But it's just the process of it. And I'm just saying once again, the last time I said, it's just the fact that it's about perception. And so we've had a lot of this going on lately about perception and public input and stuff like that. So my only thought would be saying, why skip that process if it's not actually a hindrance to the actual project? So that's my thoughts. But anyways, I will get started. Any more discussion on that before you
No,
start?
I think it's a great idea
Okay.
too. I mean, I sit on the fence too with you, David. I see your point on that. But I think if it's well out there and comments can come in still, it kind of weighs both on that as well.
Good.
I think just as long as it is put out there and as much as we can, yeah. Word of mouth, whatever.
Because I still think allowing the comments to come in regardless whether it's public hearing or whether we hear the comments coming in, we're going to hear them regardless, and we'll be able to adjust them.
Well, just so you're aware, after the second reading, third reading, you have to go back. If you want to make adjustments, you have to go back, right? You have to.
No, you can make adjustments before third. So
Before the third.
That's why we're only taking it to 2 readings tonight.
Gotcha.
If you were to take it to third reading,
Right.
and you wanted to make adjustments afterwards, we'd have to repeal third, go back to the second reading, make your changes. So that's why we go to second reading tonight. If it was inconsistent with the OCP or there was, major contentious issues, we would have a public hearing. Bring it back, we could make changes based on the public hearing to the bylaw. We could amend the bylaw within that meeting, and then go to second, and then have that reading, and then third, right? So second reading is your ability to make changes to the bylaw before it's
Oh,
solidified.
absolutely, sorry, Mayor, I meant, Mary, was the fact that the first and second reading, I meant like not having a public hearing input is my point. So,
Yeah, so before third, like when we come back, so if we take it to 2 readings
Yeah.
tonight, before we make third reading at the next council hearing, we can make amendments to it before third.
Right.
So, yeah.
right. Okay,
And the only thing I'd say before we go forward with this is there's a typo within the bylaw amendment, that it's actually C2 zoning. It's right on the line, and the map in the office is
Oh.
in need of an update as part of the zoning bylaw update. So,
okay,
so it's currently in the C2 zone, not the
C2?
C1 zone.
gotcha. Okay, so, I've beat that horse over the head many times. Can I guess you said it was a resolution that they're making this, right?
Yeah.
Not a motion. So can I have a resolution for the first reading?
So moved?
Have a seconder?
I'll second, oh,
Go ahead, Cindy.
Councilor Burge. Any more discussion? We'll call the question. All in favor? Carried. And for the second reading, can I have a resolution for the second reading?
so moved?
Seconder?
I'll second that.
Not ready. Any more discussion on that? I'll call the question. All in favor? Carried. On the second part of the, so this would be, CEO, this would be a resolution as to waive the public hearing as well?
Yes.
Okay. Can I have a resolution to waive the public hearing?
So moved?
A seconder on that?
I'll second it.
Councillor Burge. Any more discussion on that? Hear none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Carried. And that's it. Thank you.
We let the mayor back in?
Yes.
I think she's locked herself out of there.
You know there's another door to get out of.
Come on, Susan, exercise time's over.
Thank you. Okay, moving on, we have council reports. You have my report there. I do have a correction on it. The last item under planned activities, it's May 4th, not May 1st, for the Bubbles Blossom Design category in the Small Business Awards. And April 27th, I had a teleconference, CAO Daly and I had a teleconference with Ministers Farnworth and Osborne to discuss the current order and travel restrictions. I don't think we learned anything new, just reinforcing what we already have been told. Any questions on my report? Hearing none. Councilor Burridge.
Still sitting idle, so I have to make up things for myself. I did receive an email from, just forgot the company, that did the drive-in theater last year, wanting to know, hey, so I'll be looking into that, because we do have some funds that were left over, and apparently there's some funds that were donated to the outdoor sportsmen for this event, and there's a little bit left over that didn't get spent, so I'll look into that. And other than that, I started an Upbeat Vibes Facebook page because I've been tired of all the negative stuff. I like the funny stuff, but, so that's my own rebellion.
I think we all need that right now.
So I'm sure soon I'll be busy, right?
We'll find something for you, yes. Any questions for Councilor Burridge? No? Councilor McArady?
It's been pretty quiet on my end. I did hear a little tidbit that Communities in Bloom may be looking at having some sort of scavenger hunt, which I'm hoping will go through. Good, because I think that would be well-deserved and fun to do in town. Gold Country has been quiet. Everyone's been quiet due to COVID right now.
Okay. Any
That's all I got.
questions for Councillor McElravy? Councillor Park?
Only meeting in the last couple of weeks was the Museum Society had theirs. I actually have not been to a meeting yet, and, just because of the times they have everyone working. So they're usually, this is actually a physical meeting, so they're actually in the yard, and but the Zoom ones I couldn't make. But anyways, but what happens, I usually talk to them before and talk to them after. So that's, of course, what you've seen on here are some of the questions that they had, we fielded. And the one thing that they plan, they're hoping to open up in June. And of course, they have one of the things they're doing is they have a COVID safety plan in place, or they're putting it that they've asked the sheriff of the village and see so what in what capacity they'll be able to do that in, which is kind of course depending on what's happening in the world, of course, and in our province. But that's their thoughts right now on those, which is exciting. And that's it. No other meetings attended.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Councillor Park? No? Councillor Rivet?
Just what's been submitted there.
Okay. Any questions on Councillor Rivet's report? No? Could we receive those for information, please? We have no new business. Current list of outstanding motions. We have a few. Museum Society, okay. Coordinating the changing of the picture in Robertson Square with Museum Society, Public Works, and CDC Barrage. Mr. Daly, has there been any progress on that?
Has there been? The museum's not brought anything forward to staff yet at this time.
Okay, thank you. Road paving has not started yet. TNRD reflective street signs. Staff come up with a plan to do a rollout of information. Mr. Daly, any?
Staff did contact the company that the TNRD uses, and I think the signs came out to be a fair bit more expensive than we were anticipating, like in the neighborhood of $30 a sign. So
Oh, that is a fair. Price has gone up.
quite a bit more than what we had anticipated. And I think it's the TNRD orders them by like the 100, so
Right.
they get a cut rate compared to what we would get. So
Okay, thank you. And the letter of support from Director Watson was completed. Okay. Calendar of events, we have nothing. Notice to proceed to in camera. Would someone care to make the motion?
I'll make the motion to proceed to the closed meeting as per section 90.1E of the Community Charter.
Second?
I'll second it.
Councillor Burge, all in favor? Carried.